your gardening coach, and I'm really pleased today that you could come and gather and meet your plants, some of your plants. And as I mentioned, I've started these from seed, except for these I dug up, and I'll be introducing you to each of the plants and how best to care for them, how to plant them, and then everybody's going to receive their box with seeds in it, and then some instructions so that you know how deep to plant and how far apart to plant, and some of the friends and some of the considerations when you're planting. So there we go. So I'm really happy to hear your questions. Also want to hear what your experiences are, like you've had experience with lemon balm, and love questions. So have questions throughout. It's not interrupting. And so we're going to go on a journey of learning about how best to take care of your plants and to make the most use of your garden boxes that you have. So I've been gardening pretty much my whole life. I learned from my grandfather, and I remember he had a small farm in the southeastern U.S., and he taught me how to plant corn. 4 kernels in each hill, because not all of them will make it. And that's one thing to pay attention to. Like, not every seed we plant will will germinate. And so we have to sort of sometimes plant extra, or just know that they won't all make it. So, and then I learned from my dad too, who loved to garden. My dad was a very tidy gardener. I'm not such a tidy gardener. And so one of the things I'll be sharing with you is sort of a plan for how to garden, but you do it your way. Like, you don't have to do everything in tidy rows. You can do circles, you can do spirals, you can do curves. It doesn't really matter how you plant it. It wiggly zigzag lines, that's okay. It's more the care of the seeds and the plants and things like that. So that's really important. And so we'll be talking about the basics of planting, the basics of watering, basics of waiting. Because that's part of it too, waiting. And then also harvesting. So we'll go over all the things about when you know things are right. How do you know things are right? What do you do? And so that's what we'll do. Also, I'm going to share about some edible weeds, because it's one of the things while we wait for our seeds to start emerging is to weed. And so it's important to know some of the weeds, so you can distinguish what's the weed and what's your plant that you're waiting for your harvest. So usually the weeds come first. So as you're probably well aware. So that's fantastic. And I love, for me, gardening is like 1 part science, 1 part math, a lot of parts of discovery and experimenting, and so much wonder. Like, I just get so excited about watching the little seedlings emerge and grow. And I have grow lights too in my house. That's where these all started out, to help them when the daylight is enough, it's not warm enough outside. And so, yeah, the wonder of being able to grow our own food is just amazing. And so I'm so excited to be part of this project too, and thrilled that you guys are eager to grow your food, and that Bowls of Hope is doing this project. It's really super. I'll introduce you to the plants that I have here, and then we'll talk about those things, about planting, and about watering, about waiting, and about harvesting. Okay, so this is lemon balm. So it is a perennial. So it grows every year. It keeps on growing. It has a strong root. I planted this so that it wouldn't take up space in your garden box. You can keep it in this pot. And when you get it home, you can just snip it. Leave a little, leave this. So where it's divided here, it's going to grow again. Like if you've ever had a basil plant and you snip it, like who was talking about that? Snip it, and then it's going to grow some more. And then you can use this lemon balm to put in your teas. Like, there's some leaves that have a bit of brown on them, but you can take those off and then pinch it, and then it's going to grow. It'll be sturdier, And so it looks a little scraggly now, but you can just cut that, and then it's gonna put up new growth, and it will be fantastic.
As a perennial, does it just stay outside, or
Yes.
do you bring it into your garage?
So if it was in ground, that's a great question. If it was in ground, it would stay out all year. Like I dug these up from my farm.
Okay, and even if it snows.
Yep, that's right. But in the pot, then it's gonna freeze more. So you might want to bring it in. I mean, you decide whether at the, like in late fall. So whether there's a space you have outside that you like to dig in, or you might have done that earlier, dig it in, and plant it. It likes sun to partial shade, and it's lemon balm. Oh, a slug came along for the ride. We don't want you to join them. And then I was yeah. So this one, if you cut it, and then it will keep growing, and then you keep snipping and taking the tops off, and it's going to branch and things like that. And it's great in water, fresh water. Gives a little lemony taste, or you can dry it and make a tea with it. So then you can have it during the winter, and it has a calming effect. And who doesn't need a little calming in this crazy world that we live in, right? So it's not like a sedative, but it does have a soothing calming. It's safe for children too. So you might want to, if you have a space to plant out. Otherwise, you could bring it in the house, and treat it more as a houseplant. Although I know I'm not so good with houseplants either. I'm great with plants that I can grow for food or that are good for the beneficial insects or something outside. But houseplants, I know they're trickier than growing for food. So, and we can talk some more about that sort of toward the end of the season. Say how's it doing, and okay, do you have a space, and what do you want to do with it? So great question. Okay, so that's lemon balm. This is thyme, and I put these in paper pots because the thyme is I started this on February the 6th, and this is the size that it is. So it's very tiny. And I was telling people earlier that somebody had asked the question, do you pinch it back like basil? And yes, you do. And so I had to. It was growing. It germinated, and germinated is the word we use. You might be familiar with. It's when you see the seed emerge. So the seed is emerging as a plant from the seed is germinating. So it germinated, and it was this long, skinny thing. And if I had left it like that, it wouldn't be as hardy now. It would be more fragile. But I had to pinch it. I had to cut off some, and so then I cut it off, and I just used the cuttings. But now it has lots of little branches, and so everybody's going to get 2 of these. You're going to get 2 thyme plants, and you're going to plant them right in the garden, and you're going to tear down the paper so that it's not sticking up, so that the soil in the pot is the same as the soil level where in your garden. So you have to dig a hole, this deep, but you don't want it sunk in because it likes to be up higher. You can see we'll look at it closer. If I could pass it around, I would. But there's a stem here, so it likes to be higher. It likes to be higher, and this is what it's going to look like in a year. So it gets. This one I haven't cut back so much, but soon I'm going to cut it back. I dug it up to bring today. So then you can see that started as one stem, just like this, and then it has all these branches because I pruned it back, and it could even do something called layering. Lay down branches and start roots, and then it starts new plants or expansion. But it has to decide that it wants to do that. We don't want to bury this little one. It still needs to grow upright to get stronger. So, and thyme is a perennial.
And why keep the newspaper on?
Good question. Because this way you don't have to fiddle with the roots or make it the right level. It's already at the right level, and so I do that for plants that don't like like their roots disturbed. So it's handy because the newspaper is going to decompose, and then it will just be part of the soil. And then this is ready. Parsley, which is this one, really does not like to have its roots disturbed. So it's also grows up above the soil a bit, not buried. I'll show you. There we go. And so you can see it's down there. So I'm going to tear off quite a bit of that to make sure that it's at the level of the soil. And you can see there's new growth forming, and you're going to be able to, within 2 weeks, you're going to be able to start nibbling on this parsley. And you get 2 parsley plants. So 2 parsley plants, and this is a biennial. A biennial plant is that it will last through the winter, and then you can keep on nibbling on it. Probably it'll be dormant during the winter, and then there'll be a time in the spring that you can eat some more on it, and then it's going to send up a seed head, and then it's going to produce seed for you. And then you can eat the parsley seeds, and then you can also plant them, or you can let it self-seed a bit. It doesn't self-seed as much as the lemon balm does, but it can self-seed a bit.
Like it will do that on its own, or we have to do something?
You don't have to do a thing.
Okay. What does it look like when it's doing that seed bomb?
It sends up a flowering stalk, and then it takes the process of turning from plant into the seed head. It takes a couple of months, and so it will be over months. And you can still nibble on the parsley, but it might be more bitter because it's focusing a lot on the energy of making seeds. And so yeah, and then the shallots. These are shallots, and this is the chef. These are like spiffy onion shallots. They're very delicious, but they're like expensive as all get out. But Yolanda said they're really great to have the experience of cooking with, and if you grow your own. So these are a different matter. These you're going to take out of the paper pot, and I'll tell you a little bit more about that. So planty plant.
Those will come back again.
No, and they won't be ready until September. So I wanted to make sure that you had things. The lemon balm you can take home. You can snip off those tops, and you can have some leaves right now. The parsley, in very soon, like within a week or 2, you can have that. And the thyme, well, you can start snipping just a tiny bit, not too much. Give it another month, and then you can start snipping away. So I wanted you to begin having something you weren't just waiting for everything, and also some that you would keep in your garden, like the lemon balm and the thyme. Would last you more than this season. Thyme is included so that you have a perennial, but also because it repels pesky insects. So it is going to because it's so aromatic, it will give off the scent that pest insects don't like, and so the shallots and any onion family is a pest confuser, because they'll smell it, and then they won't be able to get the smell of the plant that they're going after, and they'll just get confused, and then they'll hopefully not hang around. So that's what I wanted to introduce as well, is to have, I'm an organic gardener, and so I don't do pesticides or herbicides. The plants can work together and support each other, and we can design a garden so that you don't need to have pesticides or herbicides. Okay, so planting. So when you're planting, the first thing is soil, right? And healthy soil. There's a whole amazing world under our feet, the soil. It's actually called, if you can look this up, the soil soil food web. It's amazing. A whole entire universe under our feet. And there's lots and lots of science about it, and lots of discoveries and how to support the soil food web. We got compost that you got in the bags. Did everybody get to put theirs together? The soil, and how is it looking?
Just mixed it up.
Great.
Use like a little fork thing.
Good. Good.
Yeah.
And did it fill the box?
Actually, I didn't do it. I thought we were going to learn that today.
Okay, that's no problem. Yeah. So, and that's fine. Yeah. No, and some people did it. Some people said, I jumped the gun and I did it already. And I was like, you didn't jump the gun. It's all good. So, really, there's a lot of, there's certain things that, like you were saying, you learn from what you do, right? There's a lot of discoveries, experimenting. And plants are very fragile and very tough, sort of like humans, right? We're fragile and we're tough. So that's fine that you waited, no problem. So the soil, yes.
I found I had a little bit of soil left over at first.
Yes.
But now after the rain, there's maybe like this much of a gap at the top, so I think maybe I'll get home and put the rest on.
Sure. It settles. Yeah. And it's okay to have a gap because when you're putting in plants, you're going to displace some of that soil. You don't want it covering over the top. So yeah. And it's okay to have some extra to add on after. And it was really, the compost came from here. Dan from the local harvest shared compost, and I was so excited. Did you see worms in the compost?
Yeah.
Yes. Isn't that exciting?
They were really happy.
Yes, I was so thrilled because I was like, worms need oxygen, and they don't like to be in the sun. And how are they going to live until I get to the family? But I'm so glad they actually get to it. And so the worms are part of the soil food web. They're really we can see them. But there's so many, to our eyes, invisible creatures that have this intricate dance of relationship that's all about supporting the health of the soil. And that's why the compost is so important, because it has nutrients, but it also has invisible critters. I'll just call them invisible critters that work together. And some they support the roots of plants. It's just amazing. Like, it's a whole big bunch of science around it. Okay. So how deep? So when you're planting, so soil is there, then planting. How deep do you plant it? And I've given you instructions in your handy little box here. So I have this chart. I went through all the vegetables, and so I have, the name of the vegetables, they're in alphabetical order, pretty much. And how deep and how far apart, so that's written here for each of them. And I have it in centimeters and inches. Sometimes I still go by inches. So,
Yeah, me too.
And then when to plant it. And so you don't have to, this is all here, you'll each get a copy. How long until you're going to see it poking up through the soil? And when will it be ready to eat? I mean, these are the most important things, right? And then, what are its friends, or foes? And how does it get along with others? So those are all important. We have a small space. And small space gardening, any space gardening, you want to know who gets along well with others. But anyway, so you'll have all the information hopefully you need, and please do. You have my email, you can write questions. And also, Ted and I were talking that we can see, one of the things is that I'm gonna go over what you're gonna plant now when you get home, and then in May 15th you'll come again to pick up some more plants, and that's the time that you can bring some questions. We can have a conversation. I won't be having a formal session as if this is formal, but I will be right here at Local Harvest, and I'll be giving out your plants and chatting with people who want to hear how your garden is doing. And by then, you'll probably see things emerge, and we can talk about it. You can show, and you can always email pictures. That's great. And I think we want to have a collection of pictures, right? And so
we need to leave room in our garden box for what we're getting on the 15th of May.
Yeah, and I'm going to go over a planting idea for you. And so, just so you know, this is going to be hopefully really helpful information for you, and goes through each plant. So, yeah, today you are getting, let's see, 4 different plants and 5 different kinds of seeds. You're going to have, altogether, you're going to have 13 plants and seeds, 13 different varieties of plants to grow. So I'm going to put this back. Okay. So, yeah, and so the planting depth is really important. And a handy tip is the size of the seed. You'll do twice the size of the seed is how deep you plant it. So I don't know. Has anybody seen carrot seeds before? Don't sneeze when you're dealing with carrot seeds because they will disappear. And honestly, I mean, I did count out 40 carrot seeds each for everybody. Boy, did that take a while. And they're tiny. I think I want to give you more carrot seeds. But what I propose is in the small space is that you're going to be planting what's called succession growing, so that you'll plant a small, we'll call it a row for want of a better word, it can be a curve, planting a small amount, and I suggested that you can do 2 to 3 plantings of carrots and lettuce and cilantro. And so that's all on the information. You're welcome to write it down if you want to, but it's also on the information sheet. And also on the little seed packet. So, like the beets. So you have beets too. So the beet packet, they're sort of gnarly things. Here. You probably know what beet seeds look like, yeah.
Is that from like a flower that a beet grows? Like where do those come from on a beet?
What a great question! What a great question. Yeah. Yeah. So, beet seeds and spinach seeds look similar. They're like crunchy. Those are beet seeds. Do you like beets? No?
I love beets.
Yeah. 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 So these are called red ace beets. So to answer your question, where do the seeds come from? So beets and spinach and lettuce and kale. So they all send up a flowering stalk. So you're not going to see this year, if you take all your beets and eat all your beets, then you won't have seeds. But if you left a beet in the ground, let it overwinter, and sometimes seed savers will choose for the best size, most resistant to pests and things like that. And they might dig it up and put it in sand or sawdust in a cold storage and then replant it in the spring. So I've never tried it with beets, but I have with lettuce and with kale before. They just stay in the ground, but I'm not quite sure with the root vegetables. So anyway, they will send up a stalk, they'll send up the flower, and then those flowers will get pollinated, and then they will form seeds. And then these are clean seeds. So what happens, any seeds, if you get into seed saving, any seeds will have like protective coverings on them. And so some of the seeds that you will be able to save this year, which will be really fun, are your nasturtium seeds. So this is nasturtiums, and so these are bigger seeds. These are like, you can't see them because see through them, but they're thick, and so those are an edible flower, also edible leaves, and so but they will, if you leave the flowers, then they're going to set seed by the end of summer. So if you don't eat all the flowers, you'll be able to save some seed for next year, which is really cool. So there's only like 10 seeds in here, but that's going to be 10 very abundant plants. Has anybody grown nasturtiums before? Has anybody ever tried eating one before? You have. What did you think of it?
I was little, my mom used to eat them.
Yes? Yeah. And what did you think?
I thought it was pretty cool.
Yeah. they're gorgeous. Here,
Like, do you put them in salad?
yes, yeah. Oh, and this I just checked. This is actually Dan from Local Harvest. They did a cover. This is West Coast Seed. It's an incredible resource. And so they're. Let me find their flow.
That's where my black tomatoes are from. Is
Really? That's great. Okay. I'll show you a picture of them. Okay. So this is Jewel Mix. This is the kind you're having. So they're yellow and orange.
Ooh, they're almost like pansies.
Yeah, they are. This is the Jewel Mix. Am I doing it right? Okay. And this is an nasturtium. Jewel Mix. Great. Jewel Mix. So you can keep your spicy. It's a flower. It's a flower. It's an edible flower. Yeah. You like that? Jewel Mix. Yeah. So they are like not everybody will like enjoy the spice of them.
Is it like a peppery?
It is peppery, yes. And the leaves and the flowers, and they're gorgeous in salads, just gorgeous. They also attract pollinators, of course, with their flowers, and they're a great companion for cucumbers. That's why I suggest they be planted beside your cucumbers. And they will also spill over your, like, I'm going to suggest planting them on the edge. At the end, I'm going to show you the mock-up. Plant them on the edge so they'll spill over your blocks. It'll be quite beautiful. And so they're not taking up as much real estate with the plant. Their roots and some of the plant will be in the container, but then they'll spill over. And then, and they kind of are wild and everywhere. It's quite fun. So planting depth and everything. We're still on planting. Ooh, how's our time?
We're almost at noon.
Almost at noon?
Sorry, at 11. Sorry. Sorry. Didn't mean to give you a heart attack there.
You did? I was like, how did that happen? Okay, yes.
You were talking about the seeds having 2 or 3 seedings. What do
Yes.
you mean by that? Like
Yes.
when I pull up something, then I replant?
Yes. So we call it succession planting. So it's a way of having, whether you're doing it in the size that you have or somebody with rows and rows of space, that it allows you to fill in as you're harvesting something. Then you can fill in with other seeds, and then you have more of a continuous harvest. And so the suggested times are these seeds that you're taking home today can be planted now. So they can be planted. You don't have to go home and do it right away, but you can do it within the next week. And then, I'd say the plants I'd suggest getting in the next day or two. It's perfect that it's raining. Absolutely perfect. Because then you don't have to worry about watering. We'll talk about watering next. But seeds, we follow the instructions and with the planting depth and the distance apart. And then they're going to be small amounts. Like I suggest, like with the carrots, it's like 40 seeds approximately. And so I suggest that you put 10 to 12 seeds at a time. That means don't sneeze and use tweezers. And honestly, they're tiny. Here, you want to see? They are so incredibly tiny. This lettuce. Here, we'll start this way. So this is the lettuce seeds. Yes, and these are the carrot seeds. I know. These are your. Oh wow. These are lettuce seeds. That's a lot smaller than the corn seeds. Oh, for the corn? Yeah. Yeah. Do you have a little pot? Yeah. Oh, good. Yeah. I cut 2 or 3. We have 2. Yeah. So this is the size of the lettuce and the carrot seeds. Crazy. And I counted over and over. Honestly, they're so if you were putting like, say in a row like this way, yes.
Like 1 every.
Yeah. So I shared on the chart how
Like I know you.
Yeah. So and carrots and lettuce seeds. So I said, you put them in the ground, double what their size is. So they're tiny. So they're just like barely a quarter of an inch, maybe not even, hardly less than a centimeter, like half a centimeter of depth. So one of the things that it's really great. the rain is doing it for you. To have it all, to keep the soil moist when you put seeds in. You don't. So the rain is perfect. And so when you get your garden bed built, let the rain come down for a day or two, and then you can start planting. So these are going to be almost at the surface, and you want to keep them evenly moist. So fortunately, the rain is doing that for you. And I don't think it's going to be too heavy rain. And so the spacing is listed. So you're going to think about the space you have, planting the seeds, and then one of the dangers with lettuce and carrots, especially in any of these spine seeds, is overseeding. And I have overseeded lettuce many times and carrots many times, and that just means that you have to thin them, and then you're not getting, like, you're losing out. So, and that's why it seems crazy to have to so delicately take tweezers maybe and plant these little seeds, but that way you'll have less that you loss, and each seed will count. And so they're days, it'll take days, maybe over a week. And I have all those listed on the chart of how long before you'll know whether they're coming up or not.
Is everything that you're going to provide for us going to fit, or are we supposed to save some seeds for like next year?
No, everything should fit this year.
Okay, so you kind of plan that fit.
Yes, yeah, and I'll be showing you that. Okay, so, and how far apart? And now we're going to come to water. So we've done planting, so now watering. So grateful for the rain now, and it's a nice gentle rain hopefully this week, and so it'll be perfect for moistening the soil before you plant. And so then later on, when you're planting in the summer, so I suggest planting now in April, then in June, and then in early August. For the things that you can do succession planting. That's for these cilantro and the lettuce and the carrots and the beets. Those are the ones that you're going to plant again. That you want to make sure that all the things that you did the first time, when you're replanting, you have to follow that pattern again. So make sure the soil is moist, evenly moist, and that's going to be trickier if we're in a stretch of time when we're not getting rain. And so you're going to be watering it. And the trick with watering is, as we do with houseplants, you don't want to overwater, but you don't want to underwater. It's a little bit, and watering, the really important thing to remember, the three things is water the roots, not the leaves. So that's really important, especially when it comes to tomatoes. Tomatoes do not, like you said, a lot of people had blight in the community garden. Yeah. That's how blight comes. Blight lives in the soil. It just does around here. I mean, you might be fortunate this first year that it won't be in your soil. We can hope that it won't. But to protect your tomato plants, water the roots of the plant. So you water low down, not with a sprinkler doing the overhead thing, which might seem, or a hose that you spray everything over. So if you are using a watering can or your hose, then you want to go low. And you don't want to blast it either, because you don't want to blast the roots. You want the soil to stay around the roots. You just want to water it in such a way that it's getting the moisture. And you want to water for seeds. For seeds, you want to keep them evenly moist. For the thyme plant, it likes, once it's established, it likes to dry out. It's fine. It does not need to be kept moist all the time. And for your cucumbers and your tomatoes, you want to give it, like, it depends on how, you have to look at the weather. When it comes to watering, you have to keep an eye on the weather. So you have to know, when was the last time it rained? How hot is it? And sort of poke around and sort of put a finger in. And if you can feel moisture in the soil, that's okay, because the roots are going to be deeper. Not for your first fresh seeds, though. Fresh seeds need to have all evenly moist until they're coming up and until their roots have gotten established. But for your tomato plants and your cucumber plants, they're going to establish pretty, within a couple of weeks. And then they need deeper watering, like not just a little, go like this. It's like a good amount of water in. Like if it's really hot, like once a day, it's better to water in the morning than in the late in the day. If you water in the morning, then it supports it through the day, and then it's drier at night because slugs will come at night. They'll know how to climb up that box. Don't worry, they will figure it out. Slugs and snails will figure it out. And so if you water at night, there's a more tendency for pests and diseases to come. So, so those are the things about watering. Keep your seeds moist. Keep water deeply when plants have established roots, and water in the morning as much as you can. Yeah, and no overhead watering. Now the waiting.
So
Yes.
when there's a harsh rain, are we supposed to do something to cover the box?
Nope. You just hope you just haven't planted some seeds. But if you do, then they'll bounce around, and you'll find out where they start. You know. And so when your first seeds come up, you want to sort of say, oh, you'll get to know. You'll get to know the difference between that's this kind of weed, or this is a weed I don't know, and this is a carrot, and this is a lettuce, and this is a beet. You'll get to know what they look like. And so for later on, when you have more weed seeds just floating around and coming in, then you'll be able to notice them. What was your? Sorry, I blanked out. You just had asked that.
Oh, about a heavy rain.
Heavy rain, yes. Yeah. So if they bounced out of the areas you thought you planted them, then you'll be able to say, oh, well, I think that's a carrot. I'm gonna give it a few days. I've done that with plants. It's something's emerging, and I don't know what it is, and so I say, oh, I'm gonna wait a while, and then it's like, oh, that's salmonberry. Like this is, it's like, oh, okay, maybe I don't want that growing in the middle of my orchard. But I like to sort of see and identify as much as I can what's coming. So we got the planting and the watering, and now we're waiting. So during that waiting time, you want to make sure that you keep your seeds moist. That's really important. But if it's raining, you're out of a job. It's very nice. And then you're gonna want to sort of get to know your weeds, and you probably, partly when you're just starting out, you may not be like, oh, I don't know if that's a weed or not a weed. So I'm going to show you a couple of my favorite weeds. Honestly, these are all edible and nutritious. It's amazing. So this is one called lamb's quarters. Do you know this one?
Pig's weed.
Pig's weed. Yes.
I love it.
It's so nutritious. Pig's weed, lamb's quarters. Sometimes you have it's in the amaranth family. This is a young plant. It takes a while to learn when you see it coming up what it looks like. And it would have been wise if I had brought some just beginning to come up, but this is a couple weeks old. But you can nibble on it, and it gets the stalk can get this tall.
Wow.
So you
in empty lots and things. It's
Yes.
kind of like a little greeny
yes.
tail. Yeah.
Yeah, and so if you do wildcraft your weeds, that means, harvest them not where in your yard. You want to make sure that nobody has sprayed pesticide or herbicide, that nobody has peed on it, like a dog or hopefully a dog, and that, that it's safe to eat. So that's more with your, that's more with your dandelions and lower things, and these are higher. I find I now value this so much that I saw some coming up in my garden, and I was like, yay, lamb's quarters. And of course it's like hundreds of them because I let it do a little self-seeding, but I do it's amazing. Weeds will self-seed really nicely for you. Other things you have to work hard at getting them to start. Weeds will self-seed. That's why they're weeds, but it's valuable. It also gives to the soil, and that's the other thing, that there are plants that give back to the soil and don't just take nutrients from the soil. And then it gives nutrients to us. And so it's I actually gather it, sip it, I cook with it, I dry it, and then I make green powder, and then I add it to smoothies and soups and stews and eggs. So I love lamb's quarters. Then another plant you might know. Do you know this one? It's called plantain.
Like the banana?
No, different than the bananas. Yes, good question. And there's also clover.
Is it
So there's
the same?
PLANTAIN. So plantain is such a valuable weed. So it's great if you have mosquito bite, a bug bite, a wasp bite. If you see plantain, I dug this up from like the sort of gravelly driveway. It's also called white man's foot by indigenous people because it followed settlers wherever they went. And so it's and it grows in rough areas. So you might see some. It's not gonna start in your garden box. It's gonna be more along the edges and in rougher areas. And so it's adding nutrients to the soil. But it's great if you get a bug bite. You just pinch a leaf, you rub it in your hands. You can chew it if you know that it's not been stepped on all over and stuff like that. And then you apply it to the bite, and it will reduce swelling. It will reduce the sting. It's fantastic. It also is a very good to dry the leaf. Did you get to see it? Yeah. So plantain is great for also dry and put it in teas. It's good for digestion. It's good for the lungs. It doesn't it's not gonna taste like mint, but it has a earthy taste. Like I'm not gonna have just a straight tea of plantain. Then you add it to something, and then it's doing its benefit. So I really highly value plantain. Also clover. Clover is nourishing the soil. So you can also eat any clover flowers. So there's red clover and white clover. As long as there's no bee in it, and you're not going to get a crunch and a sting at the same time. But clovers are really nourishing. So if I let clover grow some places. If it's not, like I might have to move some. Sometimes if it's taking up too much space, but I know that it's giving back to the soil. So those are really important. I think they had somebody else. Who else do they have? Oh yes. Here. Oh, so this is chickweed. This is a scraggly kind of chickweed. So it has a. Have you seen it before? Yeah. Have you eaten it before? Yeah, you can eat it. It's very nutritious too. When it goes to flower, it's not. Like the stems might be a little chewy, but this would be very tender to eat. That part. So it sprawls around. It can. So I remember once in the garden in Edmonton, my mom spent a whole afternoon pulling out chickweed, and that was before I knew I could eat it. And I was like, oh my gosh, it missed out. So chickweed is you nibble it, you can also pull it out, and it's going to come again. When it goes to flower, it's not bad for you, but it just won't. It'll be tougher and not taste this good. Oh yeah, I had another chickweed here in the paper pot. So those are, while you wait, you can look for weeds and enjoy them. And sometimes you might have, while you're waiting, you're watching them come up, and you're looking for signs of, how are things doing? Do you need to thin anything? Like it's come up, and then it's like, oh, it seems a little crowded. You can, like if you're like carrots are a little crowded, if it's not a hot day, you can try to move some around or something like that. But you might, depends on how you were able to do the tweezer maneuver, and hopefully you won't have to have too much thinning. And then look for your weeds and pay attention to the weather. Those are all part of the waiting time. So make sure you're doing your watering. So you'll get the hang of it. And this is part of the experience and discovery and letting the plants teach you too. And now harvesting. So how do you know when things are ready? So like I talked about with the lemon balm, you're going to snip now, and then you're going to see leaves emerge, and you're going to just be able to continuously, not take a lot, but take some, and you just want to make sure this is pretty hardy, so the roots are going to keep emerging and growing in the plant. With the time, you're going to snip, as I said, And as it gets older, you'll be able to take more, but it probably won't be till fall that you'll be able to get very much. And it's not going to look like that until next year. And then with the parsley is going to be the one that takes off. So it's just little now. Oh, and that's the other thing I want you to talk about is size. So you can see the difference in the size that these take up. So when we're planning on planting, we have to take into consideration not only the size that they are now, but the size they're gonna be. And so the parsley is this size now, but it's gonna take up this amount of space. So because it's gonna get bushier and bigger like that. So and these teeny tiny little. So I'm gonna show you about the shallots. So the shallots, we're gonna open up the paper pot, and I'll have to. And so now you're gonna see. You can see the roots. So here, you can see some roots.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I would suggest before you unravel this, to just take your scissors and cut like that. And there you have some nice tasty green onions. So these are actually two varieties. One is called Tall Mother, and that's the shortest one. That's very interesting. And this one's Conserver. And so you're going to separate, so you're going to work gently, and you're going to take, tricky to do, and redo, but you're going to see how the, oopsie, you're going to separate them out, because there might be, hanging on to each other. And then you're going to plant it in the soil so that the roots are covered and a little part of the bulb is covered. And you'll want to firm it. So if I'm planting this like this, I'm going to want to firm the soil around it so that all the roots are covered and that it's standing up if it can. That the roots, but it's going to maybe take it a day or two to be able to stand up again. Don't worry if it flops over to well, and I suggest, so there's 8 or 9 shallots, and that's just a tiny number, but they are going to get big. They're going to bulb like this. So, like this. So they start small, and then they're gonna grow.
So we separate each one of those.
Yes. Yeah. So the shallots, and I wrote that down on the thing. They're the only paper pot you take apart. The shallots. So now I'll show you this design that I suggest. Okay. So I'm gonna show you. Here you go. Can you see?
Yeah.
10?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So this is a mock-up possibility. Okay. So I was like, how am I going to do this for everybody? But I thought so. So I suggest that you put a tomato at one end, like so. Tomato at one end, and you can take a picture. I'll hold it still so that if you want to take a picture. Whoopsie.
Wow, really?
Great. Ted will take a picture and be able to send it to everybody. Yeah, that's great. Okay. And so I suggested having 3 shallots on here. That might seem silly. They're sort of tiny, but you're going to want to space them, at least this far apart. I sure can. Absolutely. Yes. Okay.
I will never get this done fast.
Yeah. You're welcome. You're welcome. So this is my suggestion, and I'll tell you my rationale for why do this. So the shallots, I'm putting 3 shallots down one end and 5 shallots down the other end. Because they're pest confusers, you're going to have that aroma of alliums, of onion family, at each end. And it's going to be here by the tomatoes. And the tomatoes, you've seen tomato plants, see? Tomato plants get big. So I suggest that the tomatoes are for next time, but that if the tomato gets planted, like about here, and then it's going to be bigger, it's going to still take up a lot of space. So if I did this is exactly 4 feet and then it's 20. It's not as wide as yours. It's like missing 3 inches, but it is 4 feet. So, and then if we think about everything is a foot. So, try to see where so the first foot is right here. So this is 1 foot. It's from here to here. And there's something called square foot gardening that looks at taking a foot at a time, and you can really plant it this way. So you're thinking about, so the tomatoes here, but then they're going to circle and circle. There's going to be a little space for some cilantro here, and then lettuce here, and then you don't have to do it in rows like that. You can do it however. And then the bush beans here, taking up a whole foot themselves and a little bit more. And that's because the lettuce and the cilantro like a little shady. So here they are between taller growing tomatoes and taller growing bush beans. Whoa, hello
Sorry,
there.
that was me nudging it.
Oh, that's okay. I don't mind getting wet. And so then their cilantro and the lettuce don't mind some shade. So then they'll and also the tomatoes are going to start small. The bush beans are going to start small, and the bush beans you're not going to even plant until after the soil warms up. They're very finicky. So so you can plant the beans and have them inside. And before you have it inside, you on a sunny window. Okay. Because it's too cold. It's too cold in the soil now outside for either of those plants. The beans or the corn. Yes. So these are bush beans, so they should be fine to support each other. And you're getting like 10 seeds or 12 seeds. So, but they space them apart, you know, as I described in the chart, and then you'll be able to have them. The trellising. Tomatoes do really well with support. So you can do like find a stick at the park or something like that, and really tomatoes grow and grow and grow. Like honestly, I had tomatoes last year. They were ground level here and up to here. Yes.
What kind of tomatoes are these?
So you're getting 1 cherry tomato and 1 like sort of salad sized tomato, and they're both early ripeners. Like one is I'm doing Brandywine cherries, and one called Matt's Wild Cherry. So I'll have those both, and you can choose which one you want. And then I also have something called Siletz, Siltez. Siletz. It's supposed to be very blight. It's blight resistant and other kind resistant, and it's supposed to be early. So I know that the earlier you can get your tomatoes, the better off you are, because it's less problem with the blight. And then you get your tomatoes sooner, right? I'll be going over, like there's special things with tomato care I'll be going over in May. So now you had asked about, so the bush beans aren't going in yet. So you can put your lettuce in, your cilantro in, tomatoes out. So you want to leave space that you'll know your tomatoes are going here, and you know your bush beans are going here. So you can put the lettuce and the cilantro in, but just short rows of it, and leave space on either side for those. You can put a thyme plant here, and the thyme plant is, remember, it repels insects. The other one confuses them. This one repels them, so you want to have that one in a location. And then carrots and beets both like bush beans and like each other. And then parsley and a parsley. And then nasturtiums here at the, and I thought that the cubes should probably go in a little bit further. And then nasturtiums probably, probably 6, you can plant the seeds about 4 to 6 inches from the edge of the container box. And then they're going to be in the soil but spilling over a bit and outside the box. And then they are going to be great with the cucumbers. And the cucumbers too like to have some support. So they like to climb. So you can, so they can sprawl, but then they take up a lot of real estate. So you could get them to climb up and twirl them around a stick, or devise something like that. And then the shallots here in another time. So that's the suggestion I have, and the rationale for why I suggested it, so that you have your perennials. And parsley gets along fine with everything. time gets along, and so the cilantro. So there's some you'll see that I put in the list of friends and foes, like which there's some plants that don't, and there are some plants on there that we don't have, like some things like strawberries. But some year you might want to have strawberries, and then you know. Again, West Coast. So you can use this as a guide. You can decide how you want to do it, but also sun. Your sun. You're going to think about, like I said, shade. Like between the tomatoes and the bush beans, they're going to be shade because they're going to get more sun, and then the lettuce and cilantro are good. Most plants don't want shade. Your tomatoes don't want shade. Your cukes don't want shade, and your carrots and your beets don't want shade. But the lettuce and the cilantro are fine with a little bit of shade. They need sun, but and the thyme likes a lot of sun too. So that's when you think. I love that you've been watching how the sun is on your space and sort of sussing out, okay, where's going to be the best place to put the garden box. So as the rest of you have stuff, put yours up, and then look at planting. Okay, which end is going to be the one that I plant this at? And so which way? Because if the tomatoes are in the south, then they're going to shade everything, not just this. So if they're in the north, then they'll be taller and they'll still get sun, but they won't shade out the rest of the garden. So those are there's lots to consider. A few things. Yes.
So more of the afternoon sun than a morning sun? I guess we would want because it would be hotter, right? The afternoon sun?
That's right.
So
Yeah,
like
yes.
between like 1 and 5?
Yes. So then I put the tomato. If you're getting afternoon sun, I'd have the tomatoes at the back.
Yeah.
At the back, so that then they are not casting a shade over the whole thing. Yeah. Okay.
Could I ask,
Yes.
when you designed this layout, did you use the look in the southwest would do the beans,
Yes.
corn, and squash?
Right.
And
Yes.
the corn would support the climbing beans, and the squash would
Yes.
provide the ground cover.
Yes,
So you
yes.
kind of did that, with that.
Yeah. So the companion, exactly. It's the friends and foes are really companion planting, and how plants can either support each other, like structurally. That is, and like the nasturtium is shading the roots of the cucumber because the cucumber doesn't like to have its roots burned, and so that's going to provide some shade. Also, their habitat for beneficial insects, and so things like that. And I love planting the Three Sisters, but you need. So the companion planting of the Three Sisters is corn and squash and beans, and they are complementary to each other because the corn is a heavy feeder. It needs lots of nutrients. The beans give nutrients, and then the squash vines cover and keep cool the roots of the bean plants. So that, and the corn. So it's just an absolutely stunning interdependent example of interdependence and support. And so the companion planting is similar, not so much structurally support as it is what's the best way to have the neighbors get along. And yes.
I have a watering question.
Yes.
So like for the seeds, they want lots of water and moisture, but if the time is Mediterranean, should I be watering it less than the seeds?
Yeah, once you've gotten it established, so that means that I'd say it's going to get plenty of rain. Nothing will need water this week because we're going to get rain every day. And then you're going to let, it's okay if the time dries out. Like I watered it yesterday. It's in a unheated greenhouse, but this morning I didn't water it. And I know that it's because it was going to go out in the rain, right? And so if today when you go home, the lemon bulb needs to stay outside. These, and we have boxes or containers for you to take these home in. And then they can be out and getting rained on. That's fine. And so, interestingly enough, like even though it'll rain every day and the time will be in there, it's in the summer that you don't want to just keep it always wet. So it's a sort of funny thing. Like somehow nature's giving it rain. I know that we're going to get rain for a week or so, and then it won't. But you don't have to protect these from the rain. But the paper pots will need to, it'll be great if they can go into the soil sooner, within the next couple of days, because then the paper is going to start disintegrating in the rain even if the plants are hot. Okay. Yeah, I'm going to. I'd hope to get it done before we've met, but I'm sort of glad I did it this way. That I'm going to be sending you through TED some resources like media resources, so that you can like YouTube channels that I think are great about gardening, and the West Coast Seeds companion planting, so you can read some more about that. West Coast Seeds website has awesome information about should you want to have more than what I provided, or just details about how do you know what it looks like when you harvest it and things like that. And great color pictures too, which is awesome. And so it'll sort of be a one pager and then you'll get it emailed, and then all the hyperlinks will take you right there. So you'll have that. And so yeah, harvesting. So three things for harvesting is check for readiness. So like your tomatoes, you're gonna see them green, and then yours are gonna be green and then turning black. But the other ones I have here are red, green turning red. And so you're gonna want to watch for readiness, and I know like you're gonna be waiting for that first cherry tomato and grab it up as soon as you see it. Cucumbers, also you'll watch for them, and as they grow and grow, like flower, yay, there's a flower, and then there's a little cute, oh, it's getting bigger, and then, okay, how do I know when to pick it? And so you'll have to experiment. When people start having their cucumbers ripen, and you're not sure, you can send me an email. Is it time yet? I don't know. What do I look for? But the thing is, after you start picking them, cucumbers like to hide. They are really big at hide and seek. So they will hide under leaves, and then they'll get giant and yellow, and then they're good for a certain kind of pickle, but not for the kind of eating that you want to do. So you have to hunt for your cukes. And then the lettuces, when your lettuce grow, you don't have to wait until it's a head of lettuce. You can be picking the outside leaves. And you can also do something called, you don't have to pull the whole thing out. It's better, actually, if you don't. But for lettuce, you can, after you pick the leaves and it's gotten to a size that you like, you can cut it close to the base, and that's called cut and come again. And so then it will start again. And so then you'll still have that lettuce in that space, and then you'll maybe started some more lettuce, but then you can have it come again. It's kind of neat that your plant is going to rejuvenate itself. It's really quite amazing. It might do that a couple of times. And depending on the weather, again, like sometimes if the weather isn't quite right, it might not like it, and so it's not going to behave well as promised. Another thing is, let's see, those key things. Let's see. Oh, yeah, and you want to keep picking. So, the beans, for your beans, when they come in, you want to keep picking your beans because they will produce more if they're picked. And so, because it's a signal to the plant, if it produces a big pod, it's producing seed, and so it's done its job. But if you keep picking it when it's young, it's like, oh, I haven't made my seed yet. Yes.
Is this another thing like the herbs where we're going to cut down a little bit from where it grows out, or do we want to take it right at the part where the...
Yeah, so with the beans, you're going to take the bean, just the bean, and not the foliage. And so you do have to, again, it's the thumb and the forefinger are busy for me in the garden. You pinch it right where it comes off the vine. Let me see if I can find a picture of the bean. So let's see. Good question. How are we doing for time, Ted?
It's like 11:30.
Okay.
Also too for the beets, the top of the beets, we ate those too.
Yes, thank you. Yes,
With vinegar,
yes.
little bit of vinegar
Thank
and
you.
butter. Oh my gosh, it's the best thing.
Thank you. I had intended to say that, so I'm really glad you spoke your experience. So beet tops, the beet greens are great, and as you from your experience, they're delicious. They're very nutritious, and so when you do, you can take some beet greens even while you're waiting for the beet to ripen, and you can choose to have your pull your beets. Beets you pull, but when you pull your beets, you can decide: do you want it small? Do you want it medium? Do you want it to wait till it gets large? So, and then you have enough beet seed to do a couple of plantings, and so you can try. And then you can also, if you planted them, and you can pick a middle one when it's sort of small or medium, and then the others can get bigger. So then you're giving them more space. But definitely eat the beet greens.